My name is Quinn Gilbert.
And my name is Sean Osborne.
And today we'll be discussing how people perceive performance-enhancing drugs, or PEDs for short, and athletes using them, as well as what PEDs are and a brief history of them.
While it seems like a simple and straightforward topic, it is much more complex the further you look into it. For example, is it fair to use performance-enhancing drugs to gain the advantage against others who are not? Does it matter which sport the enhancement drugs are being used with? These are some questions we'll be looking into. To better understand this, we will break it down into a few sections first. What are steroids? Where do they come from? And famous stories of athletes using them. There are two main types of steroids: anabolic androgenic steroids, also known as AAS, and corticosteroids. It is important to acknowledge that not all steroids fall under these two exact types. However, they cover a solid majority. Some of the other significant steroids are neurosteroids, mineralocorticoids, and sex hormones. Steroids perform different purposes depending on the type of steroid. Anabolic steroids, such as testosterone, dianabol, and trenbolone, are all used for enhanced muscle growth. So what effects will it have? Anabolic steroids will improve athletic performance, help with gaining and losing weight, but while there are benefits to using AAS, they come at a cost: liver damage, acne, high blood pressure, hair loss, and hormonal and emotional imbalances. Despite those dangers, if you suffer from a medical condition like testosterone deficiencies or muscular dystrophy, they can improve your health.
Corticosteroids are used for medical purposes and do not promote muscle growth. Some popular examples are cortisone, prednisone, and hydrocortisone. They are prescribed for things such as allergies, asthma, arthritis, and skin conditions. There are some side effects like weight gain, mood swings, and reduced immune function. Both types of steroids mimic natural chemicals from your body. They come in different forms like liquids, injections, and creams. But the effectiveness will vary, and you should always check with a doctor before taking any steroids. Another key distinction is natural versus synthetic steroids. Many steroids, such as testosterone or cortisol, are natural to the body and made in the body. These are less likely to cause extreme reactions when extra amounts are introduced to the body. While it is safer than synthetic steroids, they still can be misused and be dangerous. In comparison, synthetic steroids often have more focused purpose for stronger effect. Stanozolol, trenbolone, and more all have risk of causing hormonal imbalance. Now that we know what they are, let's talk about where they come from. The discovery of steroids stems from research surrounding roosters. Before we understand what hormones and steroids, many ancient people ate animal testicles as a way to boost strength. Steroids, as we know them, arrived in the 1930s. This comes from chemist Adolphe Butenandt and Leopold Ruzicka, who earned a Nobel Prize for their work. Originally for medical purposes, however, in the 1940s they developed synthetic anabolic steroids that were being used for much more. In World War II, they were used to help soldiers recover and promote muscle growth. In the 1950s, Russia started giving all of their athletes steroids. In the 1960s, bodybuilding and weightlifting were overflowing with steroids. In 1972, the Olympics started testing athletes, and in 1976, the Olympics banned them. Anabolic steroids became a controlled substance with the 1990 Anabolic Steroid Control Act, making non-medical possession illegal in the United States. But this has not stopped athletes using them. Many different sporting organizations have found their athletes guilty of using steroids. Now, there are many debates about the ethics of steroid use. There is also more in-depth testing and high-profile cases of athletes using steroids. So, who can use steroids?
Anabolic steroids are a controlled substance that are illegal to distribute or use without a valid prescription from a doctor. The Designer Anabolic Steroid Control Act of 2014, DASCA, was made because designer steroids DASCA expanded the list of regulated substances and increased penalties for offenses related to anabolic steroids. Many of the different sports associations monitor and search their players for steroids. Despite that, some sports are more lenient when the athlete is caught using steroids. The only way you are allowed to use steroids is if there is a proven medical need for the steroids. If an athlete is caught using steroids, they can be subject to fines, suspensions, and bans from the sport. There is also often media backlash if an athlete is caught using steroids. However, despite these facts, people still use steroids for a variety of reasons. For some people, it is a way to grow in the gym, with many bodybuilders taking steroids. And some people who work very physical jobs may use steroids to make their jobs easier. So it is safe to say that steroids are not entirely uncommon, but how aware of them are a high school population. To better understand how people think about performance enhancers, we conducted a survey among high school students. When asked how familiar they were with steroids, 67.7% said that they were at least somewhat familiar with them, 58.1% said that steroids were mainly used for sports and athletics, 58% said that steroids should be illegal, with 32% saying they were unsure. And when asked if taking steroids was dangerous for non-medical uses, 100% of the survey takers said that they were anywhere from slightly dangerous to very dangerous. These survey results are important because they show how people feel about PEDs and steroids themselves. More knowledgeable people will have a different opinion on an athlete using PEDs compared to one without much knowledge.
Barry Bonds is known to be one of the best baseball players of all time. He played a total of 22 seasons, with 7 being on the Pittsburgh Pirates and the rest being on the San Francisco Giants. He recorded 7 MVPs, 12 Silver Slug awards, as well as 14 All-Star selections. He also holds the record for the most career home runs, most home runs in a season, and several more. But that's only on the field. That's not even counting on the field. He won 8 Gold Glove awards, as well as 514 stolen bases, which makes him the only player to have 500 home runs and 500 stolen bases. This career is filled with many accolades that cements his place as one of the best baseball players of all time. But he was never inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Why? Well, it's because of his controversy with steroids that made many people question his legacy. But first, Bonds was born in Riverside, California, where he quickly excelled in several sports such as basketball, football, and of course baseball. He was quickly named an All-American for his performance. Despite being drafted in the second round and offered $70,000, he refused and decided to go to college instead. The college of choice was Arizona State University, where he performed well and in his second year was selected as an All-American and next year was named to the all-time College World Series team. Despite his talent, he was not well liked within the team, and most players said they would rather not have him on the team, despite him being the best on their team. After this, he was quickly drafted and quickly became a dominant player. He improved vastly every season and quickly became one of, if not the best player on the Pittsburgh Pirates very quickly. He continued to be a phenomenal player when he moved to the Giants, as well as breaking records every year and being a top player in the league. In 2003, he was the main figure in a scandal involving steroids. The Bay Area Laboratory Cooperative, or for short, Blanco, was marketing tetrahydrogesterone, or commonly known as the Clear. The Clear is a performance-enhancing anabolic steroid that was undetectable to the doping test. It was undetectable because of its unique chemical makeup, and there was no specific doping test meant to identify it. This meant that Bonds was allowed to fly under the radar for several years. Bonds' trainer was arrested for supplying athletes with performance-enhancing drugs, which started the speculation that Bonds himself was using steroids. While originally telling the public that his changed physique resulted from a change in lifestyle, he later admitted to unknowingly using the clear. He claimed that he was given the substance and was told it was a nutritional supplement.
The responses for Bond's usage of performance-enhancing drugs were rather varied. Some fans felt betrayed and said that Bond's use of PEDs ruined the integrity of baseball and made his achievements diminish in value. Others say that Bonds was targeted because many other baseball players used steroids in this era. So many, in fact, that some call it the steroid era of baseball. The pressure put on him as the face of the steroid era, and he was often criticized for being uncooperative with the press. His case was later brought up when the MLB came under criticism for its lax drug testing policies. Bond caused people to call out for reforms in drug testing. He remains ineligible for induction into the Baseball Hall of Fame because voters refused his entry because of the PEDs.
Lance Armstrong was born on September 18th, 1971 in Plano, Texas. His athleticism showed during his high school years when he was a triathlete. During his teenage years and in high school, he excelled in endurance sports specifically. This was further proven when during the 1990s he started his professional cycling career at just 18 years old. He earned a reputation for strength and tenacity during races. His fame soared when in 1993 he won the UCI Road World Championship. He was only 21 years old when that happened, and many foresaw him becoming the best of cycling. However, his career was stopped in its tracks when in 1996 he was diagnosed with advanced testicular cancer. It has spread to his brain and lungs. With a grim prognosis and many giving up hope, it seemed as if Armstrong's career was unfortunately taken away from him. That was until he proved the world wrong completely. He went through many treatments and made an amazing recovery. Such an amazing recovery that he returned to professional cycling just 2 years later, where he started a historical winning streak. He won the Tour de France 7 consecutive times, from 1995 to 2005. He dominated the cycling world and became a global icon, recovering from advanced cancer that spread to the brain, and then just a few years later winning the pinnacle of the sport. He was seen as a symbol of resilience, and with his fame and winnings, he created the Lance Armstrong Foundation. This foundation raised millions in cancer research, which is where he gained even more support and fame.
Many people felt betrayed by Armstrong's usage of PEDs. As stated earlier, he was widely admired because of his inspiring recovery from cancer. So many people saw him as a sports hero. Because of this, and it was all shattered when his PED usage was exposed. Some people defended him, saying that PED usage was common with many other cyclists using it. The PED usage did not deter them from still admiring him and thanking him for his contribution through the Livestrong Foundation. For many years, Armstrong denied profusely and aggressively. This caused people to see him as manipulative and deceitful, which further ruined his reputation. Career-wise, the International Cycling Union stripped Armstrong of all 7 of his Tour de France titles and imposed a lifetime ban. Many people felt conflicted because of his contributions to cancer funding and awareness.
John Jones was born on July 19, 1987 in Rochester, New York. The Jones family was a family of athletes, with both of his brothers, Chandler and Arthur Jones, having successful NFL careers. Jones took an interest in sports starting with wrestling in high school, where he won a state championship. He continued wrestling throughout college, where he became a national wrestling champion. He later transitioned into MMA in 2008. Jones debuted in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or the UFC, in 2008 at just 21 years old. He quickly became a rising star, winning nearly all of his fights. In 2011, he became the light heavyweight champion. He is also the youngest UFC champion in history, and over time he defeated many UFC legends such as Rashad Evans, Daniel Cormier, and Alexander Gustafsson. This further solidified his status as one of the best and most dominant fighters in the world.
But many fans can't help but be frustrated and disappointed with Jon Jones. Well known for having several altercations with the law and being troubled overall, his doping allegations do not help. Many people say that Jon Jones is not as dominant and doubt his achievements because of his doping violations. The media constantly portrays Jon Jones in a negative light, and it can be considered his fault. With his history of infractions and controversies, alongside the doping violations, leads the media to have a field day with him. Many UFC fighters say that because of this, his wins are unfair and that it is dangerous to other fighters. Despite the doping violations, he still remains a UFC fighter, and the UFC president, Dana White, constantly commented that Jon Jones was the number one fighter in the world.
Arnold Schwarzenegger was born on July 30th, 1947 in Thal, Austria. He grew up in a small village and developed a passion for sports early on. His main focus was soccer, but he quickly grew into bodybuilding as a teenager. Being inspired by legends such as Reg Park and Steve Reeves, Arnold decided to become more serious about bodybuilding and moved to Munich. This is where he started ending up winning Mr. Europe Jr. at only 18. He quickly rose to fame in the bodybuilding world, winning Mr. Universe in 1967 at only 20. Just 3 years later, he started a dominant run, winning Mr. Olympia 7 times. His rivalry against fellow bodybuilder Lou Ferrigno helped to further push bodybuilding mainstream. After retiring from bodybuilding, Arnold became an actor, achieving arguably even more fame with main roles in films such as Conan the Barbarian, The Terminator, and Predator. Much later, he entered politics and became the governor of California, where he served 2 terms lasting from 2003 to 2011.
Arnold has openly admitted to using anabolic steroids during his bodybuilding career several times. During the 1960s and 70s, steroid use was legal and not frowned upon in sports. Many bodybuilders used drugs such as testosterone and dianabol to build muscle mass and enhance recovery. He claimed that he had medical supervision and used it in small amounts. During the peak of his bodybuilding career in the 1970s, most did not care, since it was rather accepted and even considered part of the culture of bodybuilding. This, of course, was before research was conducted and the potential health risks were uncovered. In the 1980s, the risks of PEDs were growing more known and controversial. But despite this, Arnold's fame was never tarnished, and many still consider his achievements due to hard work. More recently, he has received some backlash, but many people still admire him. Critics say he set an unrealistic standard for men across the world that was unhealthy and influenced others to take PEDs. Others say that considering the culture of the time, he cannot be blamed for this. Many admire him as someone who pioneered and revolutionized bodybuilding and sent the sport into the global spotlight.
One common reaction to a lot of these athletes is disappointment. They often feel betrayed, especially when they are admired for personal qualities such as hard work. In the example of Lance Armstrong, many people saw him as an icon for being able to overcome such a devastating condition such as advanced testicular cancer. But by using steroids, a lot of his achievements felt lessened, and his story of hard work suddenly turned him into cheating. Many fans of the specific sport also feel disrespected. For a sport you love so much, to have one of its greatest athletes doped up, some feel as if it's disrespectful to the sport itself. A lot of fans have also called out the usage of drugs overall in the sport. In the cases of Barry Bonds and Lance Armstrong, both were used as examples to change drug testing policies overall. While some fans say that these athletes were merely targeted considering the widespread use of PEDs in some sports, a lot of athletes also had their achievements put into question. The lines between skill and PED usage blurred. Fans did not know if they were only as successful as they were because of hard work and talent, or the drugs used. All of them quickly became highlights in the media as well. The media plays a large role in how a lot of these people view these athletes. John Jones is known as reckless, while Armstrong is a fraud, but Arnold is a national sensation. The way the media portrays them, which is often in a bad light, can change how fans see them in their situation. Every athlete also had some sort of public defense towards their usage. While they do differ in how they apologize, such as Armstrong aggressively shutting down accusations to Arnold openly admitting it, each athlete came out, talked about it, and defended themselves.
But what is so different about each of these reactions? Well, one of them is that each sport had a different reaction. Armstrong's sport of cycling is an endurance-based sport, and PEDs directly help with endurance, which is why he got all trophies stripped. Bond's punishment was more lenient, where while he was banned and not allowed into the Baseball Hall of Fame, he got to keep his awards and achievements. This may be because of the skill required in baseball. The level of punishment is different for each of them as well. Armstrong got permanently banned and stripped of everything. Jones was suspended a few times and remains a UFC champion. And Arnold, well, he really had no punishment. They also had differences in public forgiveness and how it affected their legacy. Arnold's reputation really wasn't ruined at all, while Jones, while still allowed to compete, has had his reputation in the dumps and is seen negatively.
Three major things seem to affect the reactions of each athlete. The first is the nature of the sport. In endurance or contact sports, the backlash is a lot heavier than non-contact sports. This can be seen in the cases of Jones and Arnold, where one is fighting in MMA and one is bodybuilding. The next is how the athlete handled the scandal. Denying deception seemed to make things worse to fans compared to being open and transparent. The last is the culture of PEDs in the sport. In bodybuilding was widely accepted, and if someone was taking PEDs, then nobody would really care. However, this is massively different compared to sports such as baseball and MMA. PEDs are against fairness and integrity. They provide the user with an unnatural advantage against others and diminishes the results of their own and others' hard work. There are numerous health risks while taking PEDs as well. It can affect the athlete in severe ways physically, mentally, and the health and safety of athletes should be a main priority for any sports organization. Athletes are role models. Thousands of kids look up to athletes and aspire to be just like them. Their usage of PEDs can be misleading to young fans, and it could cause them to want to use their PEDs or feel as if that level of play is only attainable in artificial ways.
What are appropriate punishments for athletes? Doping rules and violations are implemented to ensure the fairness of the sport. The World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA for short, enforces strict penalties for severe or repeated violations. However, these punishments vary when applied and are not seen to be consistent. This inconsistency leads to fans to debate about how fair these punishments are. One example of this is the tennis player Jannik Sinner, who just made headlines recently for receiving a 3-month ban after testing positive. This has sparked debates about how long should someone be banned for. Many fans do not see consistency, which leads to doubt. How come Jannik Sinner gets a 3-month ban and then someone else could get a 3-year ban?
Going back to the survey mentioned earlier, we asked different questions on what they think about different topics we discussed today. When asked what kind of punishment athletes should receive if they test positive, most people opted for a moderate to severe punishment, with around 84% of people picking these. Interestingly enough, nobody said that there should be no punishment at all. 61% of people said that the sport in which the athlete is using PEDs does matter, while the rest said that it did not. Finally, 75% of survey takers said that their opinions change negatively when an athlete is revealed to have taken PEDs or steroids. These results from that survey are highly interesting. Most people think that athletes deserve a punishment for using steroids, which alongside 75% of people saying that their opinion changes negatively, it is clear how people view steroids.
The athletes discussed today have all had incredible careers, but all face varying degrees of consequences and feedback from their use of PEDs. Although they play different sports, it is important to find the common themes that happened, such as how PEDs affect their legacies, public reputation, how their stories changed the sport, and how fans reacted and felt.
Reactions from the public regarding PED usage varied. Some fans felt betrayed seeing that their usage was akin to cheating. Some disagree with that and say that many athletes use steroids and that only a select few are singled out and punished. This raises many critical questions about fairness and competition in sports. If, like some fans are saying true, and most athletes are using steroids, is it truly an uneven playing field? Other fans ask if some enhancements should be allowed.
Overall, it is important to talk about the use of performance-enhancing drugs because of the current concerns regarding the safety of the athlete and others. Whether you believe in strict punishments for PEDs or none at all, it still brings out important points that are crucial to be discussed.